Sigue. This rope is a representation of time. In other words, time 0, and then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It just goes on and on and on and on. This rope is representative of your timeline of your life. Okay? Este cuerdo es una representación de nuestra vida. Pero nosotros vivimos más esta parte en rojo. We only live this part in red. This is our body. Remember I told you our body? Our body only is this time, whether you live 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 80 years, 100 years. This is our time. Este representa nuestra vida aquí en el mundo. Nomás si vivimos 50 años, 60, 80 o 100. Pero nuestro cuerpo, nuestro alma, sigue viviendo. Our soul, after we die, keeps going and going and going. Millions and millions and millions of years. It doesn't stop. Our soul never dies. Nuestra alma nunca se muere. Eso es lo que estoy tratando de representar a ustedes aquí. Nuestra alma sigue viviendo. Una cosa es, puede seguir viviendo arriba o abajo. This part here is our life. This is very important for you to see. This determines where you're going to live the rest of your life. This part here. Esta parte que vivimos, cómo lo vivimos, va a determinar dónde vamos a vivir los miles de años que siguen de nuestra alma. Lo que hacemos aquí, muchas veces no pensamos que como vivimos aquí va a afectar todos estos miles y miles de años. Often we don't think about what we do in this red part has an impact on here. And when you come to the end part of this part right here, when you go from red to white, that's when you're going to see God. That's when we're going to be before God. It's going to be called our particular judgment. Ese punto aquí, cuando se acaba el rojo y empieza el blanco, es cuando vamos a aparecer en frente de Dios. O Dios va a aparecer en frente de nosotros. Y va a decir Dios, a ver, dame la cuenta. A ver, ¿cómo viviste la vida? Y Él nos va a enseñar todo lo que hicimos y todo lo que no hicimos. Y ese punto, Él nos va a ver. No es que Él nos manda al demonio, nosotros nos mandamos por lo que hicimos aquí. So, He will make a judgment at that point, but that judgment is not going to be, okay, you're going to hell because I don't love you. That judgment is because you're going to hell, you're going to heaven because of what we did in this part. So I want to, very important to get a good perspective. What you did here has an impact on what you do the rest of your life. Some people live this part and say, I'm going to save up money, save up money. So at this part here, I can enjoy my retirement and have a good old time. Really? Algunas gentes dicen, voy a ahorrar mucho dinero para ese tiempo aquí. Puedo retirarme y descansar y no tengo que apurarme de nada. ¿De veras? Y a veces, sometimes people tell us, you and I, me too, you're dumb. Why do you go to church all the time? Why do you go to confession? That's not true. That's not biblical. Why are you being so stupid? You tell them, really? I'm being stupid because I'm thinking about this when I do this? So really, who's the dumb one? A veces gente nos dicen, ¿por qué vas a misa? ¿Por qué no hay chistes? ¿Por qué van a la confesión? ¿Por qué rezan tanto? No hay chistes. Tienen que vivir la vida. Y dicen que nosotros somos los estúpidos. Pero lo que no entienden es lo que ellos hacen o no hacen aquí. Otra vez, le afecta. Y eso es porque yo estoy tratando para que vean, si vivimos 100 años, no es nada en tiempo de todos los millones de años que siguen después en nuestro alma, como no vamos a vivir. Our souls will never die. It will never die. Our souls live forever. And I know some of you as youth don't think about that. You think, I've got time. I'll live to at least live my parents' age or even older. But like I said before, some of you guys know that some of your friends or somebody you knew who died at an early age, they didn't make it. They thought they had all this, but they didn't realize they were already here. Some of us may be already here. We don't even know it. Algunos de nosotros ya estamos aquí y no sabemos. Si estamos chicos o más grandecitos, a lo mejor ya estamos cerca del fin, pero no sabemos. Eso es porque tenemos que vivir cada día pensando que ya mero puede ser el fin. A lo mejor no, pero nomás sabe Dios. So again, I want to stress to you the very importance to, when you think of life, think of Mr. Jimenez and that rope he showed. That life goes on, for your soul will never die. This part of life is a gift from God. He gave you this gift. He gave you life. And He gave it to you for a purpose. He gave it to you for a purpose to live a faithful life, but He gave you the gift of life so that one day you can be in heaven with Him for all eternity. Dios nos dio el regalo de la vida a cada uno de nosotros. Ese es un regalo. La vida que tenemos cada uno de nosotros no es de nosotros, nuestros padres. Es el regalo que nos dio Dios porque nos ama. Nos ama tanto. Pero en ese regalo, Él quiere que vivamos bien para vivir los miles años en el cielo con Él. Eso es porque nos hizo. That's why He made you. He made all of you guys for a purpose. He made you for a purpose to make it to heaven. But He's got a plan for you in this part. He's got a mission for you, each of you kids. And you say, Mr. Jimenez, what's my mission? Actually, it's for you guys to figure that out. What do you mean about that? Well, like right now, you're trying to figure out in school, what am I going to study? What am I going to be? If I'm going to go to college? Am I going to go to this? What kind of person are I be? You're trying to figure that out, but always remember, in figuring that out, you need to ask God, God, guide me. Guide me in what I should do. Guide me what you want me to do. You need to always have Him in mind. Because what good is it that we spend all this time, we want to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, and we work so hard at that, but we forget about God. We forgot about going to Mass. Then we're being pretty foolish because we're living this up and we're not thinking about the end. I know I know personally some of the students from this parish who've gone away to college and they've just totally forgotten about the faith. They don't go to Mass anymore. They're so focused on all this, they're not seeing the big picture. So I want you guys, even you young ones, to really think about that and realize that that's very important to look at the big picture. So, how many of you guys spoke to Jesus this last week? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I want you to answer that question to yourself. How many of you guys spoke to Jesus? I don't want to put anybody on the spot and say, raise your hands, and then those that didn't raise their hand, you feel guilty. And sometimes, some of you might raise your hands, even though you didn't speak to Jesus. So, if we're living this life, we're going to spend all this eternity over here. I like to spend it with Jesus, but I got to know who He is. Otherwise, we will just live it up here because there's nothing to look forward to. So those of you who answered no, that you didn't speak to Jesus this week, I want you to do one thing. This next 10 days, for 10 days, when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing you'd say, good morning, Jesus. You guys think you can do that? Not too hard, is it? Laura? Not too hard, is it? If you have to set your alarm, if you set your alarm and you wake up at 6:30, set it for 6:25. Ooh, that's first alarm. Just say, good morning, Jesus. Do that for 10 days straight. Very first thing that comes in your mind when you wake up, good morning, Jesus. There's a priest that gave a talk about that, and I don't have time to show it, but he made a very good point that you do that for 10 days, you'll see things start to change. Why? Because now you're thinking of Jesus first. You're thinking of God first. Los cabros decían los niños, ¿cuántos de los niños hablaron con Jesús esta pasada semana? Pero ellos, y ustedes como padres también, si no, les pido, por los siguientes 10 días, la primera cosa que hacen en la mañana, le dicen, buenos días, Jesús. Por 10 días, buenos días, Jesús. Y padres, por favor, acordarles a sus hijos esta semana, por 10 días. ¿Hablaste con Jesús? ¿Le saludaste esta mañana? Oh, no, se me olvidó. Padres, por favor, acuerdan a sus hijos. Porque yo sé como todos los padres, nosotros rezamos. Y nuestros hijos a veces sí, a veces no. Por favor, por 10 días. Si le pasó un día, pues cuenta otra vez. Empezamos otra vez. ¿Sí? Si le pasó un día, empezamos. Por favor, porque es importante a conocer de quién estamos hablando aquí. Si no lo conocemos, ¿para qué chiste es vivir una vida buena? Porque más importante, más gustos que tenemos aquí. Eso es porque como padres les pido que acuerden a sus niños. So again, how many days, students? How many days we're going to say good morning, Jesus? 10. All right, 10 days. Just remember that. But that shouldn't stop you from praying, and that shouldn't stop you from, that's the only thing you tell Jesus in the morning. But that's just for those of you who are having a hard time remembering to pray, those of you who don't like coming to Mass, those of you who just, Jesus is not on your radar. Those of you who are already praying, continue praying and get this a challenge. Just pray more. You heard the term. How many here have heard the term? And I will ask you to raise your hand. A personal relationship with Jesus. Anybody heard that? Francisco, you never heard that? A personal relationship with Jesus? That, we hear that from our Protestant brothers. Oh, I have a personal relationship with Jesus. I want you guys to have a personal relationship with Jesus. What does that mean? That means you talk to him. That means when you wake up in the morning, you say good morning. That means when you see a beautiful sunset, thank you, Jesus. When you eat a good burrito, gracias a Dios. You know, you're having him in your life. When you're feeling sad, you're saying, Lord, I'm feeling really sad right now. I'm upset. Things are not going well. In other words, start talking to him. Because you know what? He's right by your side. He's watching. He sees everything you do. He knows everything you do. He's loving you. He's not a person knocking on the door ready to have you open the door, but you're just not opening it. So it's very important to remember that. Okay? So keep that in mind, that lo que dije ahorita es esta imagen. I'm going to say it real quick. Imagine that this is your life. This is timeline of time. And this rope goes on forever. This part is the time you live here on earth. And this is important. How you live here on earth determines where you're going to spend eternity. ¿Cómo vivimos aquí en la tierra? Va a decir dónde vamos a vivir los miles de años. Porque nuestra alma nunca se muere. Nuestro cuerpo se va a morir, pero nuestra alma sigue viviendo. So, remember the rope. Always remember that rope. You think the world's coming to the end. Things are so bad. Everybody hates you. Your friends think you're foolish. Just think of this. That doesn't mean anything. What you really should be worried about is all this. So remember that rope, Mr. Amen. So, man, gives up with water. Okay, that rope. How do we do that? How do we say, okay, I'm going to live a good life? How do we do that? Well, ¿cómo lo hacemos? Decimos, ok, vamos a vivir una vida mejor y no vamos a vivir tan malo así. Eso es lo que I go back to what I said earlier. We have treasures. We have our very treasures of our Catholic faith. One of the treasures is the Eucharist. Mass is a treasure. In other words, we have means to help us. Praying, the rosary, holy water, scapulars. How many people have scapulars? You know, there's different things that we have that can help us. Our soul needs guidance. Our soul needs guidance. And unfortunately, when we are in sin, that's darkness. It clouds the waters. Nuestra alma necesita ayudarnos a hacer lo bueno. Y nomás hacemos lo bueno por la gracia de Dios. ¿Y cómo agarramos esa gracia? Yendo a misa, recibiendo comunión, confesión, agua bendita, varias cosas. What I'm going to do right now is okay? Well, actually, before I do that, let me do this. How many people have a cell phone? I don't want you to take it out. Everybody has a cell phone, right? We all have a cell phone. Mostly everybody has a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, your parents do, somebody else has it. My cell phone was made by this company called Apple. Your phone was made by other people, other manufacturers. But they made the cell phone for a purpose. They made it in order to be able to pick it up, push buttons, make phone calls. They made it in order to pick it up, push buttons, get stuff on the internet, get text. Todos tenemos un celular. Y este celular lo ha hecho la compañía que se llama Apple. Pero lo hicieron para un propósito, para hacer algo, para levantarlo, llamar por teléfono, para recibir textos, para algunos saber en la internet cosas. Eso es por qué se hicieron este teléfono. ¿Qué pasa si, what if I tell you, hey, Francisco, let's play catch with my cell phone. You throw it, I throw it to you, you throw it back to me. Then I throw it to Daniel, let's play catch. And I throw it back, and then we drop it and we break it. That's not what the cell phone's for. But what if we decided to play soccer with this thing? Put it on the floor and start kicking it. Back and forth. We kick it. You think, wait a moment. That's not what this cell phone was made for. So let's not use it for that, Mr. Jimenez, because you're going to break it. ¿Qué tal si usamos ese teléfono para jugar soccer o algo y lo tiramos? Ustedes dicen, ¿por qué hacen eso? Porque el que hizo este teléfono no lo hizo para cosas así, lo hizo para el teléfono. Y nosotros decimos, qué chistoso, señor Jiménez, ¿por qué estás usando el teléfono y lo estás tirando o lo estás jugando pateadas de soccer? It's the same thing with us. Think of us we're not a cell phone, we're a lot better, but we have a creator. God made us. Just like this cell phone, the company made the cell phone, God made us. And it's a gift of life, and He gave us a purpose. He made us for a reason. He made each one of you for a reason. You weren't just some coincidence that happened in life. God had you thought of from the beginning of the time. And He said, from the beginning of the time, He says, Gerardo, I know what year you're going to be born and what you're going to look like and what your parents are going to be. He had all that in mind, you know. Laura, same thing. He had Rosada, He had the same thing. He had you in mind. But for a purpose. What's the purpose? Why did God make each one of us? He made us, all of us. They were teaching your kids this in CCD. They're teaching your brothers and sisters. Someone said in in First Communion class. To know Him, to serve Him, and to be happy with Him in this life and in the next. That's why He made you. To know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him in this life so that we may be happy with Him in all eternity. ¿Por qué nos hizo Dios? Nos hizo Dios para cada uno para conocer, saber de quién es, conocer Él, para amar a Él y para servirle en esta tierra para poder vivir con Él miles de años después. Eso es porque los hizo cada uno de nosotros. No nomás los hizo para vivir una vida aquí que somos desmadres algunos y nomás no pensamos de nada de nomás nosotros. He didn't make us to just live it up here. He made us for all this. So again, God made you for a purpose, just like He made the cell phone for a purpose. He made you for a purpose. So my point in this is try to get you to understand, even though you're young, you are not any different than the rest of us. In other words, we all have a mission. You have a mission God has given you. Some of you, God is calling you to be a professional, whatever that might be. But some of you, God is calling you to wait that off and stay at home and help your abuelita who's getting really sick, or help your parents who are getting really sick, and to really take care of them. Some of you, He's calling you to stay at home, whether you're a father or a mother, that you're going to raise your kids. That's what He's calling you. But you've got to figure that out. Mr. Jimenez, or even your parents can guide you. But your parents cannot tell you for sure this is what you got to do. You have to discern it. Now, you guys are starting to get that age. You're here for confirmation. Confirmation is that grace, additional grace to help you discern what it is that you're supposed to do. So, again, I want you to start thinking about that. Thinking about that because you are now at the age where you need to start taking responsibility for your own faith. I've said it before, you don't just come, you're no longer kids anymore, you don't have to be told anymore, you're at that stage where you need to be able to set the alarm yourself and say, we got to go to Mass today, Mom, Dad. You know, you need to start, because this is what the confirmation is about. You now assume responsibility for your faith. So, the cell phone. So, with that said, I might show another example. So everybody understand the cell phone? So when you see a cell phone, just think about that. Think about that. And again, how do we do it? Through grace. We talked about grace a couple of weeks ago, a couple of times ago. Grace is what helps us to be good. Like I said earlier, grace could be going to Mass, communion. Sacraments are the main channels of grace. Most of you have received baptism. Most of you received First Communion. And most of you have received confession. And then the rest of you are here for confirmation. Some of your brothers and sisters are next door for First Communion. But those are channels of grace. What does grace do for you? It clears up your soul. And that's what I'm going to do right now, an example. If you can't see, si no pueden ver atrás, pueden parar, pero ojalá que puedan ver. What I have here is, this is you. See a little picture? A little stick figure? Sorry, I couldn't make it more prettier. This is a representation of you. The clear water in here is your soul. Your soul is clear. When you first baptized, your soul looks like this. It has nothing. Esta representa cada uno de ustedes. Nuestra alma. Cuando nos bautizaron, después del bautismo, nuestra alma estaba pura, así. No, nada de sin. What's sin? Pecado. Ningún pecado cuando después de bautizarnos, que te bautizamos. Y Si vivimos así, tenemos la gracia en nuestra alma para ver claro qué debemos de hacer y no debemos de hacer. When you're in this is called the state of grace. When you're in the state of grace, you have no sin in you. You can see clearly a lot easier of what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. This helps us when our soul is clean like this. It helps us to do good. It doesn't mean you're not going to have any problems. It doesn't mean you're not going to suffer. It doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad day. But you know what? When you do have those things, you have the grace of God to help you through it. So is it pretty clear that's what this is? This is the soul, your soul in a state of grace. But what happens sometimes, oh no, it's tequila. This represents venial sin. You have a little bit of sin, you know. You talk back to your parents. You said a little white lie. You were mean to your brothers and sisters. This represents venial sin. So, beautiful, your soul. Estos es los pecados no mortales. ¿Cómo se llama? Venial. Venial sins. Hay pecados mortales y hay pecados, se llama venial en inglés. Esos pecados que no son tan mal como pecados como pensaste mal de alguien, no tenías respeto para alguien. Cosas que no son mortales. Y a veces lo que pasa es cuando hablamos cosas así, si estamos en el state of grace, ya me quedaron, no eran muchos. This is when your soul is starting to get dark because of the venial sins you created. You can no longer see the good that you need to be due. You can no longer be protected, really, as much. Venial sin. We're talking about venial sin. So, how do you clear up venial sin? There's a couple of things to clear up for venial sin. Going to Mass. You remember that part in Mass in the beginning where it says, I confess to Almighty God, the Mighty Father, Creator of heaven and earth. You're basically asking for forgiveness, and after that the priest says, in the mercy of God, I forgive you in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's where our venial sins are forgiven. Holy water. Splash holy water on yourself. That's when venial sins are forgiven. Saying the rosary, that's venial sins are forgiven. Esos tipos de pecados no son mortales y se pueden, si vamos ganamos agua bendecida, se ayuda a limpiar la agua, se ayuda a limpiar la agua o nuestro alma. Y eso es lo que voy a enseñar ahorita. Representa agua bendecida. Si vamos a misa y entramos y agarramos un chorro de agua bendecida, nos bendecimos, miren lo que hace a nuestro alma. ¿Okay? Cosas, pecados que no son mortales, nos limpian. Again, saying the rosary, praying the Our Father, because in Our Father it says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It's all those things that it helps us do. Okay? So, in fact, I have them written down here. I wrote them down. saying an act of contrition. That's also, Lord, I'm really sorry for what I did. Things like that can help us forgive us. So, how about, I have another one. Ahí seguimos otra vez. So, los bendecimos, no era un pecado muy mortal, y ya estamos otra vez en la gracia de Dios. So, what is this? This is a mortal sin. This is something you do that you know it's bad, and it is bad. Remember the three conditions I said last time? In order for it to be a mortal sin, three conditions. One, it has to be a bad sin, a really serious sin. Number two, you have to know it's a serious sin. And number three, you need to agree to have done it. Okay, and I use the example of not going to Mass. Not going to Mass is a serious sin. And if you didn't know it was a serious sin, and you didn't go, then it's not a mortal sin for you. But I've already told you that last time, and I'll tell you again. If you don't go to Mass intentionally on a Sunday, it's a serious sin. And if you, number three, choose to not go out of your own choosing, that's the last condition for a mortal sin, okay? If you're on your way to church and for some reason the car breaks down, well, it wasn't your choice. This is not a mortal sin. Pecados mortales. Estuve hablando el otro día si no vamos a misa. Si no vamos a misa, hay tres condiciones para ser un pecado mortal. Número uno, el pecado es algo serio. Número dos, sabemos que es el pecado algo serio. O sea que, si es algo serio, pero no sabemos, entonces no es mortal para nosotros. Y eso es porque vienen a las clases para saber, es porque estudian, oyen a Padre cuando habla para aprender. Ojalá estemos estudiando nuestra Biblia. Y la tercera es nosotros decimos que sí lo vamos a hacer. O sea, si alguien lo esfuerza a hacer algo, no es pecado mortal, porque ustedes no tienen, se llama free will en inglés, que tenían, que lo van a hacer. Otros pecados mortales, infidelity, you know, como padres o madres, si no somos, si se ponemos con alguien más, some of you kids, some of you children, some of you students, mortal sin. Mortal sin is abuse of your body. If you're using your body for things, impure acts, that's a mortal sin. You know, if you didn't know about it, that's understandable. Now Mr. Jimenez is telling you, you know, we cannot do things to our body that is not of God, okay? Especially things, or doing something to somebody else's body. That's a mortal sin. I'm not going to get a list of all the mortal sins, but I think you guys know what a mortal sin is. So, when we have a mortal sin, again, a clear state, mortal sin. It gets darker, darker, darker. This is our soul in a state of mortal sin. Esa es nuestra alma cuando estamos en pecado mortal. What's the problem with this? It separates us from God. In other words, we choose to not be following God. And here's the scary thing. When you choose to do like this, you don't have the protection of God. He wants to protect you, but you choose not to. It's kind of like an umbrella. I didn't bring an umbrella. I was meant to bring it. Grace is, God wants to protect you, but if you put up like rain showers, but if you put an umbrella on, you're saying, nope, I don't want it. So when you're in a state of a mortal sin, you're taking a chance. Why? Because if you're in a state of mortal sin, right here, you die like this, you know what the consequences are. But you say, Mr. Jimenez, I'll be able to go to confession later on. Really? You may or may not. Esa es nuestra alma cuando estamos en pecados mortales. hay muchos problemas con eso, pero no podemos ver bien lo que debemos de hacer por Dios. Y si estamos aquí en ese tiempo de nuestra vida, aquí, al último, y estamos aquí, nuestra alma está en pecado mortal, ya sabe que ¿dónde vamos después? ¿Dónde vamos a pasar todos los miles de años abajo? Eso es porque dicen, si estamos en pecado mortal, debemos a correr a confesión. No nomás caminar, correr. When you're in a state of moral sin like this, holy water is not going to help you. I take that back. Holy water and Our Fathers and rosaries may help you get to confession, but it's not going to clear you up of the mortal sin. The mortal sin only gets cleared one way. And that's what? Confession. Right? Only through going through confession can we clear up our mortal sin. La pecado mortal no se van a limpiar con agua bendecida o rezando el rosario. Esas cosas me pueden ayudar a llegar a ir a confesión, pero nomás es ir a confesión con padre o otro padre. Ese sacramento que Dios nos dio para limpiarnos. Sí. ¿Listo? Eso representa Dios, His mercy. This is God's mercy. So if we choose to go to confession, I don't know if I have enough water. Let me dump some of this water because it's too much. Hold on. Otra vez. Mortal sin, state of grace, not in the state of grace. Vamos a confesión. Si vamos a confesión, salimos después de confesión, nuestra alma así. Think about it. Y si acaso estamos aquí en nuestra vida y nuestra alma está así, al fin vemos todos esos miles de años en el cielo con Dios. Eso es lo que es cosa muy bonita de los sacramentos que nos dio Dios. Principalmente si estamos en pecado, es confesiones. Yo sé que algunos de nosotros nos tardamos mucho más tiempo para ir a confesión porque es mucha lata y no hay tiempo, pero otra vez, that's all this is. Some of you kids, some of you students, sometimes you have to tell your parents, Mom, Dad, I have to go to confession. My kids do that. Oh, I gotta go to confession. So some of them are able to drive, some of them ask for older brothers and sisters. If you feel like you're in a dark soul like that, don't wait. Oh, I'll wait till Sunday. You know? Thank God we're in a parish priest here that has confession on a regular basis. And if you run into, you can call the office and maybe make a special arrangement. You know, Father, can I make a special arrangement? They might say, oh, well, he's going to have confessions after Mass this evening. Okay, then maybe you can do that, maybe not, you know. But just remember this. And remember God's mercy. His mercy is there forever. But He is not going to force it on anybody. He is not going to force you to go to confession. He's not going to force you to go to Mass. He's not going to force it because God gave us free will. You know, I like to think of it as, what's the point of making like say I was God, and I made these robots, and I programmed these robots to love me all the time, and after those robots died, they love me. What's the point of that? I mean, I made the robots and I forced them, I programmed to love me. Then at the end, is it really true love? No, they're just responding to the programming I did. It's different with God. He made each one of us, but He gave us free will. Now, free wills, you have a choice to decide whether to love Him or serve Him or not. If you choose not to love Him, there's consequences. But if you choose to love Him and serve Him, then ultimately when we may decide to love God and we're serving Him, and that we reach this point in our life, we're in heaven eternally. So, does anybody have any questions? Francisco, does it make sense? Okay. I hope you really understand the importance of that, understand the importance of the sacraments. Los sacramentos, muy importantes en nuestra vida. Some of you who have not gone to confession for a long time, and I forgot how to do it, I forgot the formula, I forgot the prayers. Hey, you have a cell phone, you can put it up, there's plenty of places to do it. But if worse comes to worse, priests have said that people have walked in their confession and says, bless me, Father, it's been 30 years since my last confession and I forgot how to say it. And the priest, you think the priest is like, man, 30 years? You're sad. No, the priest is like, praise be to God. 30 years, need it back. And the priest will embrace him and say, okay, this is how you will say it, and I'll help you. And he'll start asking questions. Did you do this? Did you think about this? And he'll help him along. Si son muchos años que no vinimos a confesión y no nos acordamos qué debemos decir, no se apuren porque tenemos padre aquí y varios padres que si uno entra, él nos ayuda. Has dicho padre aquí, y yo he oído otros padres que están en confesión y entra alguien y le dicen, padre, son 30 años de mi última confesión. ¿Ustedes creen que el padre se enoja? ¿Por qué te pagaste tanto 30 años? ¿Qué puede ser que...? No, el padre le da mucho alegre y da gracias a Dios que vino alguien después de 30 años. 30 años vino y el padre empieza a ayudarlos. Aunque no se acuerdan cómo hacer la confesión, darle preguntas, ayudarle a hacer una confesión buena. Es importante. Y como padres nosotros tenemos a acordarnos a nuestros hijos principalmente. Hijo, no vamos a ir a confesión. No necesito padre. No, todavía podemos ir. You don't have to have just a mortal soul in order to go to confession. No tenemos que nomás tener un pecado mortal para ir a confesión. If we have venial sins, we can go to confession or venial sins. That'll wipe that out clean like that. You know? And it'll help us to stay on track. But if you do, but if we little by little have venial sins, it's going to get darker and darker and darker and darker and darker. So venial sins kind of add up. So let's not wait for the venial sins. Receiving communion also in the state of grace will clear up our venial sins. So it's really important. It's important to remember that. All right, I want to make a mess with this stuff. All right, let's see. Okay, vamos a hacer algo diferente. Anissa? Cada año, every year, you guys remember this? Well, let me do this. Let's stand, everybody stand up. Parar todos, por favor. Vamos a hacer un stretch. Un stretch, yes. Siempre es mucho, muy duro aceptado por ese tiempo. Okay. All right. I'm going to pick two volunteers. First, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. First year, volunteer, and second year. Do I have any volunteers? In the back? What's your name? Adley. Come up here. You're second year or first year? Second year. Okay, first year. You guys in the back. Any volunteers? What's your name? Esteban. Okay, come here. Okay, so puedes sentar. Okay. here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna play like a little kind of a quick game. It's gotta be quick, because we got some stuff to do. We're gonna hide a little treasure here, somewhere, okay? And they're gonna guide you. You're gonna walk around, and you're gonna see where it's at. And as you get closer, they're gonna clap louder. But if you're not close to it, they're not gonna clap. So when you start getting closer to closer, they'll clap louder. Okay? Does that make sense? You need to step outside what you can't see. So go outside that door, and I'll call you one at a time. All right? Vamos a jugar algo. Let's see. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Wait. There's the treasure. Okay? That's what you gotta find. Vamos a jugar algo muy rápido. Ese es el tesoro que tienen que encontrar ellos. Okay? Van a entrar cada uno, primero va a entrar uno y va a encontrar el tesoro, entonces el otro. Pero si vienen cerca del tesoro, lo voy a poner en un lugar aquí. Si vienen cerca del tesoro, un clap más fuerte. Si están lejos, no. ¿Cómo se dice clap? Francisco, ¿cómo? Aplaudir muy recio si están cerca. Si no están cerca, no aplaudir. Voy a agarrar un pedazo de tape. Okay, stand right here. All right, so we have that treasure. Remember those two room rats? We have the treasure hidden somewhere. Okay, you can walk around the room, and as you get closer, people will clap louder and louder. Okay, so actually, hold on. I'm going to time you guys. See who gets faster. You or first year or second year? All right, hold on. Stopwatch. Go. Ándale, todos. Well, you can turn around and look. You want to find it. You want to find it. Stop talking. All right, keep going, keep going. You notice how they stop talking? They're talking a lot right now, so it's around there. Clap, clap. And they stop clapping again. Go low. Go back to, they clapped a lot around here. Go low. No, keep going low again. Harder, go low again. Low. This side. They clap a lot on this side. Go over here. Alright, now go over here. Alright! You found it. Alright, thank you. Go ahead, sit down. We'll see if we can do this right. We have to put it in the same spot, otherwise it wouldn't be right. Vamos a poner en el mismo lugar, o si no, no va a ser bien. You got a minute, 30 seconds. One minute, 31 seconds. Okay, Esteban. Here we got 1 minute, 31 seconds is the time you have to beat. Again, when you have to walk around the room, you have to find that little treasure that we showed you. And when you find it, we'll start the clock. Ready? Go. No, it wasn't that one. They stopped clapping. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. So you keep moving. Searching for a treasure. There was something in mind that you had to do. You didn't do it by yourself, did you? If you were here by yourself trying to do that, you would not find it. But people helped you. Clapping helped you. Same thing as with life. You have a purpose. You have a purpose to make it into heaven. You can't do it on your own. If you think you're going to make it to heaven on your own, you're going to fail. But those claps are the grace of God. The grace of God helps us to hear, to do what it is we're supposed to do. This is why we have to listen to God's calling and prompting to help us find the treasure. Okay? Es como es la vida también. Él no puede encontrar eso solo, ¿verdad? Si nosotros aplaudiendo. Se había tardado por, quién sabe si volvería a ganar, pero nosotros las ayudamos. Eso es lo mismo en nuestra vida. Nuestro tesoro al fin es llegar al cielo. Pero no lo podemos hacer solo. Si creemos que vamos a llegar al cielo solo, no vamos a llegar. Necesitamos la gracia de Dios. Y eso es como estuve planeando. Esa es la gracia de Dios. Y podemos no ir a la gracia de Dios y seguir tercos que vamos a encontrarlo, tercos que vamos a vivir vida buena, pero sin la gracia de Dios, los sacramentos, no vamos a llegar, no vamos a encontrar. Eso es por qué jugamos ese juego. ¿Okay? Gracias. Y vamos a tener una cosa, otra cosa, vamos a ver un video. Cada año tenemos que hacer algo, enseñar ese video. No sé si fue el año pasado. Es un video para estudiantes, es en inglés. Pero déjenme decirle como los padres. Es un video para safety. Safe environment. Es un video a decirle a sus hijos qué deben ser y no ser. No es un video de sexo. Es nomás como, por ejemplo, nunca estén solos con un adulto que no es familiares. Cosas así que vamos a hablar ahorita. La cuestión es, los diócesis de aquí en Birmingham necesita que todos sus estudiantes vean este video. Pero, como ustedes sus padres, si gustan que no los vean los videos, ustedes el video, pueden decir ahorita que no y ya se puede ir que ya se acabó la clase. Pero otra vez les digo, no es algo explícito, no es algo malo que enseña, es algo muy bueno. Yo para mis hijos los enseño, para mí, yo no me gusta enseñarles cochineras. Y eso es porque les pido ahorita, si no quieren a sus hijos que vean el video, o si ustedes quieren ver el video solos sin sus hijos, nos dicen ahorita, no, perdón que apenas ustedes dicen ahorita, o si no, si se quedan, vamos a ver el video.